Welcome to our instructional series of videos put on by growingmicrogreens.com. We're going to teach you the step-by-step process to grow wonderful, delicious, and healthy microgreens. They're fun to grow. They can be grown kitchen countertop. They can be grown on a windowsill. They can be grown in a patio. You can get serious and grow a lot of them. You can grow a little. Really fun and healthy and tasty to do. A lot of folks like microgreens in salads. They're an awesome substitute on sandwiches and hamburgers instead of old-fashioned regular boring lettuce. You can use them as a garnish. You can use them in soups. You can even juice them, very popular. So long story short, in this series of videos, we're going to show you the various steps about growing microgreens. We're going to look at a couple of different techniques, including hydroponic techniques and growing in soil. We'll talk about the types of greens that prefer hydroponics or do better in hydroponics versus the types of greens that would do better in soil. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to pH balance your water. Long story short is microgreens can be somewhat sensitive to the pH of your water. City tap water, if that's what you're going to be using to water your microgreens, typically has a pH that's a little bit too high. It's typically going to be about a pH somewhere between 7 and 8. And that's typically because the city's putting chlorine in the water, and that's raising the pH and making it a little more of a base. And microgreens can get sensitive to that. If the pH isn't in a good range, they won't absorb nutrients, they won't grow. You'll end up with a kind of a thin-looking, scraggly crop typically. Now, in some cases, some microgreens are a little less sensitive to pH, but a lot of them are somewhat sensitive. So this is an important step that you don't want to skip. So in our microgreen starter kits, which again you can get at growingmicrogreens.com, it includes a simple, quick and dirty approach to adjust the pH balance of your city tap water, whatever water you're going to be using to grow your microgreens. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do. We're going to provide, or we do provide in our microgreens kit, a little strip of litmus paper that will help you judge the pH of your water. And I'm going to walk you through kind of the step-by-step technique, and then when we're done with that, we'll talk about a little bit more serious approach using a pH balance kit from General Hydroponics, right? And it includes a little bit more accurate pH measurement, and it includes a solution to raise and lower your pH. The quick and dirty method, we're going to be using household ingredients like lemon juice, which is obviously quite acidic, and that'll bring down the pH of your water. Now, in a very rare case where you have a pH that is too acidic and you need to raise the pH, that's a little tougher using household ingredients. Your best bet probably is to take a little piece of an antacid tablet and crush it and sprinkle that in the water and see if you can't use that to pull down the pH. You can also use baking powder and baking soda if it's going to be very small amounts, because of course that has a little bit of salt in it, and you don't want water that's overly salty in the process. So if you do have water that is too acidic, we'd certainly recommend pH Up by General Hydroponics, and this is available at growingmicrogreens.com. So that being said, let's dig in and let's talk about the process of pH balancing your water. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with about a gallon of water from the tap, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a litmus strip out of this vial that has, I don't know, a couple hundred litmus strips in there or whatever it is, more than you'll ever need really. And again, that's included in our microgreens growing kit. So what I'm going to do is in this gallon of water, I'm just going to dip that litmus paper into the gallon of water real quickly. You don't want to leave it in there too long because it'll wash away the chemical that's responsible for helping you judge the pH of your water. And again, this is not precision what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is just in general, basically moving the pH down into a more reasonable range. The likelihood is, again, if you're dealing with city tap water, the likelihood is your water is probably has a pH that's a little bit too high. So what we're going to do is dip that litmus paper in the city tap water real quickly, and then we're going to wait for 30 seconds to a minute for it to color in. Okay, so now that we waited 30 seconds to a minute, somewhere in that neighborhood, we're going to take the pH strip and we're going to kind of compare it to the color chart on our vial of litmus paper. And as you can see, It's certainly not purple, it's certainly not yellow, the color is a little closer to green, and again, it's not going to be an exact color match. But what this is telling us, in this particular vial of pH strips, the pH of neutral, which is in the green territory, is typically 6.4 to 7.4. And what that means is, and again, we're not looking for complete precision here, but that means our water is a little too basic. It's probably close to, somewhere in the neighborhood of a 7 is probably what the pH is. It's a little too acidic. What I'd prefer is to see that litmus paper be a little bit closer to yellow. I'm really looking for somewhere between the green and the yellow. I don't want it yellow, that's going to be too acidic. But I'm really shooting for a pH of somewhere in the neighborhood of 5.5 to about 6.5, slightly acidic. 7 is typically considered neutral, but pH that's slightly acidic is what microgreens prefer, just a slight level of acid on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our gallon of water, and I'm going to use just household ingredients, which is lemon juice. And what I'm going to do in this particular case is I'm going to take maybe just a teaspoon of lemon juice, and I'm going to put a teaspoon of lemon juice in this gallon of water and stir it up a little bit. And the likelihood is that teaspoon of lemon juice is going to be more than enough to bring that pH into a reasonable range that your microgreens are going to prefer. And again, you can use vinegar. Lemon juice is our preference generally. But now that we've done that, let's take another litmus strip and let's measure the pH now that we have mixed in a little bit of lemon juice. And we'll give that another 30 seconds or so. Okay, so now that we have retested the pH of our water, you can see that we've got an improvement. Right? The darker of the two strips is our first test. The second test is after we added about a teaspoon of lemon juice. And you can see it's probably still a little bit, the pH is probably still just a little bit too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another teaspoon of lemon juice to give that a try and see where that lands us, and then we'll look at the comparison again. So there is our second teaspoon of lemon juice, and you can see that we're making progress there. In fact, we're probably pretty good. You can see there's still a little blue in the third strip. The middle strip maybe still just a little bit too base, and of course the original city tap water pH way too high to make that work. So long story short is the recipe to pH balance a gallon of city tap water in our town, right, is 2 teaspoons of lemon juice per gallon of water. That's your recipe. Now you don't need to worry about that anymore. Just make a note of that recipe, and you can pH balance a large amount of water in a big bucket or whatever. For example, I've got a bucket with about 3 gallons of tap water in it. I take 6 teaspoons of lemon juice, and then it's pH balanced. I can just repeat that, basically going forward. Now later on, maybe a week or 2 down the road, if you want to just test it just to be sure, after you pH balance a large amount using your recipe, then just double check it and test it and make sure that you're kind of in the range. And again, keep in mind, we're not looking for precision here. What you're looking for is just generally making your city tap water a little bit more acidic, and that will make your microgreens a whole lot happier, and you'll get a much healthier looking crop, generally speaking. Now you can certainly experiment with watering a crop with city tap water and a different crop with pH balance and see kind of what the difference is. And I think you will be able to notice a difference. So, long story short, that's the cheap way to do it. That's the fast and easy approach, and it's a good approach if you're just getting started, is using these inexpensive litmus papers, which are included in every one of our microgreens growing kits. Now, if you want to get a little bit more serious, then take a look on our website for this pH balance control kit from General Hydroponics, and if you get to a point where you're going to grow large quantities of microgreens and you need a lot of control over your pH, then we've got larger quantities available, of course. And that's just base and that's just acid. There's nothing fancy about it, but it's, it doesn't have anything else. It's a little more controlled than, say, lemon juice, which might vary depending on the acidity of lemons that went into the, particular batch. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to measure the pH using a little bit more precise pH control kit. And again, that's the control kit that you can get from growingmicrogreens.com. This is by General Hydroponics. It's quite inexpensive. It's, I don't know, under $10, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Now let's take a look here what the process is. It's a pretty simple process, and of course, in the kit, the pH control kit is pretty detailed instructions, so no worries. And what we're looking for here is we just want to take a little bit of water and put it in our vial. So they've got this nice little, I don't know, what do you call that, syringe? So we're just going to take a little bit of water and we're going to put it in the vial, right? So once we've got that, then we'll take a couple of drops of our pH formula here, and it will tell us about 3 drops in there, and let's swish that around. And that's going to tell us the pH of the water. Now what you want is you want pH that's a little more yellow or a little more on the side of green, right? So if you take a look there, that bluish color is a little bit too basic, meaning the pH is too high. That's probably a pH of, again, 7, 7.5, maybe even an 8, which is microgreens don't like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a tiny little bit, I'm going to take 1 drop of lemon juice. And let me show you what happens when I put 1 drop of lemon juice in here. It's going to take that from a base to an acid, and it's going to turn red, right? So you can kind of see that as it changes. And in fact, 1 drop of lemon juice got that a little bit more yellow. Let's take a look at that color. It didn't go as red as I thought it would. That's gone a little bit, you can see a tinge of red in there, but that's a little yellow. It's probably too much. But so what that's showing you is once you add lemon juice to your water and retest, you're looking for a yellow a little less dense, a little less on the reddish side. You want a little more green than it is red there. And that's a happy pH. That's slightly acidic, neutral to slightly acidic, and that's going to be a reasonable pH. So you can use this little bit more precise pH test indicator to get a better sense if you want a little more precision control. But the bottom line is you don't really need that kind of precision. All you need to do is lower the pH of your water a little bit, and typically the litmus paper approach is going to do just fine. Now, once you've measured the pH of your water and you know the recipe to adjust the pH into a happy range, about 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, make a note of that recipe, and from now on, water your microgreens and soak your seeds if the seeds need to be soaked in that pH balanced water, and you're going to get a lot better looking crops. So again, come and visit us at www.growingmicrogreens.com for microgreens growing kits, pH control products, and everything you need, including seeds of all varieties to grow real standard microgreen crops like broccoli, which we've got right here, all the way up to super exotic stuff like purple basil and Osaka mustard and Tokyo bacana, and lots of interesting crops. Thanks very much.